Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our workshop today. Today, we are going to talk about masked combinations or masking combinations. So these are kind of a type of combinations where the main idea is well hidden. It's a very specific topic. So well, if you're not familiar with it, don't worry. I'm sure you did meet such combinations in your games, but maybe you just didn't know that there is such a term which explains it. And today we are also going to talk about how to create such combinations yourself. For example, I'm sure you're familiar with the game that I illustrated where I did such a hidden combination against a grandmaster Ariel Sarin here in Argentina. So he was expecting one thing, but he made a mistake in visualization and didn't realize that I have extra opportunity in one of the lines. Okay, fine. So we started. We are waiting for more students to join our workshop. Please let me know if the sound and video quality is good. It should be. Everything is connected. I had some technical issues in the beginning, but now it works really well. Okay, all good. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what you have to know about these uh, masking combinations? Well, first of all, well, in modern chess, when chess players become more competitive and can well, are good in tactics, are good with some opening theory knowledge. So it's very hard to execute tactical combinations. And well, usually chess players who regularly solve tactical puzzles can recognize tactical motives and understand what you are going to initiate, what tactical strike you're going to initiate. And this is where you have to mask your tactical idea. So let's talk about the types of masking combinations. Well, it can be a specific move that prepares a combination, but at the same time, this move may contain something else in mind. Well, for example, what kind of moves it can be? For example, you can defend the king from a potential check, because if you see that your combination doesn't work because there is a intermediate check, you can put your piece to a protected square. If you see that in this combination that you're going to initiate, this piece is hanging. So making a luft, an escape square for the king works too. You can just improve some coordination of your pieces in order to initiate a tactical strike after that. Or you can prepare your position for a tactical strike with a pawn. Okay, so this is what's just first type of combinations. Let's continue, and we will continue after we analyze this position. So first of all, it looks like white has domination. The pawn on c6 is weaker than the pawn on d4. But are there any combinations? Well, yeah, probably with the back rank, something like knight e6, which distracts the rooks and allows us to play this. So is white really threatening with knight e6? At the moment, it seems not, because knight e6, rook c6, and the queen is under attack. or the other rook takes and the e8 is still covered. So they are not ready. But here, Black overestimates their position and decides that they can take advantage of a pin by doing f6. But this is what White actually wanted. f6 now makes their position more vulnerable. So White occasionally creates such a situation where they may consider Black to play f6 to take advantage of the pin. But for f6, they prepared a hidden combination. What do you think? What they can play now? Okay, so d5 is suggested by John. Okay, d5, let's say rook takes e5. What then? So, because d5 works very well if they take with a pawn, or if they take with a queen. So this knight is hanging too. But what if they just simply take on e5 with a rook? The rook is no longer hanging. You can, well, d6 this time is a blunder. So you can trade the rooks first. And what then? d6 or take on c6? Well, okay, d6, they save the rook. You take on c6. Maybe there is something else. Take on a5? No. Then they take on d6. And where is your win? You can pin. But again, I don't think it offers anything. They at least can continue with queen c7 here, right? Yeah, it seems that they can. And with queen c7, it seems that they unpin. Or, yeah, they do unpin, because if this move, they can unpin. No, this is not a good move. They can just play king f8 or king h8. There is still a pin, but it's an extra piece, so it can be sacrificed. Why rook d6 doesn't work? Because of queen c6. It's a back rank mate. Same situation happens in case if they decide to trade the queens and then capture the knight, there is a back rank problem. So actually, Aloof should be played earlier. But no, it's not d5, it's something else. What else can you suggest for white in this position? Okay, then suggest a very nice idea. So knight f7. Well, knight f7 is a tempo gaining move. It attacks the queen, and the only line we have to consider is actually king takes. Well, actually two lines, king takes and queen e8. Why knight goes there? Why not, for example, knight c6? Well, if knight c6, it's simply rook takes from e6 to c6, and there is a problem here. So there is no check. The queen has to be sacrificed for two rooks, well, exchanged, but then it's queen and knight versus two rooks, and black should be winning. So knight f7. How does knight f7 works? Well, if rook f7, it's obvious you just take on e6. If king f7, so this is the biggest issue. What do you think? If king f7, then what? Then suggest to take, then king takes and rook e1. But how does it work if the king simply escapes back to f7? Because if he did escape to d7, it would work perfectly well. You could deliver a check, king moves, and queen e6 is checkmate. But if the king escapes back, then what? Queen h5 check. Yes, there is queen h5 check. So if you play this, they checkmate you with rook e8, queen e8, queen e8. But this move. So it seems that you have to take there. And in this position, they are actually completely fine if only they play which move. There are several options. Just tell me. No, there is actually one good move. I see only one good move. It's 97. That's right. So the concept is that the knight blocks on g8. And black is winning. So the attack isn't strong, and black has extra material simply. So knight e7, maybe rook e7 first. Well, but then even the king can take. I think queen e7 is the best move. Queen h8, go there. This move, another check, king g8, and checks are over. So that's why it seems that rook e6 doesn't work, at least not now. Yeah, white also experiences problems with the back rank, but in this position, white is winning. Yes, that's why Queen h5 should be played first. So Carlos is absolutely correct. Queen h5 right away. Why? So the king has to stay closer to the rook. So King f8, for example, they lose exchange. King g8, the same. Well, King a7 left because the g6 means this. King f8, so no time to capture because there is a queen hanging, but just to check attacking the queen behind. So king goes to e7, then take the rook and take the queen. So king e7 is the only option. And this time, this king cannot escape to f7 anymore. After, no, this is a mistake. After rook straight, rook e1. So these squares are available only. So king d6, let's say, or king d7, there is no big difference. Queen c5, forcing the king to go to d7, and this checkmate that I demonstrated before with queen e6. That's why capturing with the king didn't work, because there was this move, knight f7, taking advantage of the fact that rook is not protected. So they played this. What did they miss in this position? The topic today is masking combinations. So the combinations that are well hidden. Yeah, hidden tactics. So rook takes rook, and after queen takes rook. Knight h6 to play its moderate mate. Well, it doesn't work. They just take your knight on h6 because it's not a discovered attack. So knight h6, they still take it. Check, and then what? Oh, you can take there, but the king is still here, and you cannot bring your queen to f8. No, knight h6 doesn't work, so you have to play knight d8. That's right. So rook takes rook, and then knight d8. And this is a fork, so they actually don't lose much but a pawn. Well, queen e7, they could trade the queens, for example, and then take on c6. Because this is not a problem. d5, and it's protected. So knight a7, just rook c5, for example, to protect the rook. Or even d6. No, d6 is a mistake. So knight e7 doesn't work because of this. Knight takes knight. So knight a7. Well, first of all, it's not hanging, so maybe I can just play king f1 or f3 or f4. F3 is better. Just f3 and then take. So if you take, I can do like that. Take, king f7, c7, the pawn is promoted. So there is no chance to take. So rook here. And in this position, it seems to me that there is nothing wrong with this. Yes, it seems to work. We should trade the queens. Why you don't want to trade? So I think it's a winning game. It's technically winning. So this, and then you push the pawn. So king f7, a6, check. Here, here, and the king goes that way. So it's an easy win. In this position, d6. Interesting idea. Yeah, I think d6 works. Even here, because in case of this, it's d7. And, well, rook c7 fails because of d8, and the knight is pinned. But rook d8. No, okay. Okay, fine. So let's just play d6 in this position and then bring the king. Yes, it's more restrictive. So, for example, I don't think that this is a good move. Why? Because you can deliver a check and then trade the rooks and then promote. So that's why in this position, they have to play with the king first, which allows you to win a pawn. And after king e6, you win. Because if they take, the pawn in game is completely winning. So rook goes that way. They take, you take a6. Now they stop the pawn. So king f2. Now if they take, it's an easy win. The king is tied down to that pawn, and you can always get into the enemy camp. So, for example, this. You block the pawns, and then the king is distracted, so you can invade his camp. Or let's say you can even play this, a7, take this. You win this pawn. So king e6, king c6. The rest is just to stop these pawns. And well, actually, you'd better do it at the very last moment. So king d3 is still the best option. Anyway, it's a winning endgame. Fine. So trading queens is a good idea. Knight d8, queen e4 was played in the game, knight c6, and this is winning. What was the main problem here? So what didn't black visualize? I have several ideas. So maybe they didn't visualize that this is a fork. Or maybe they didn't visualize the geometry and they didn't realize that queen h5 leads to checkmate. However, that was Alexander Alekhine playing with black pieces. That's why I can only guess, because, well, he was definitely good at almost everything in chess. Fine. Let's continue. So, this is a very nice trap in Ruy Lopez variation. So, e4, e5. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6. So they take. Typically, we take with the d pawn. And for knight e5, we continue with queen d4, winning the pawn back. But this time it was b takes c6, which also is playable because after knight e5, you can win a pawn back. What do you think? How do you win a pawn back here? So there is queen e7 move. What else? Yes, the simplest way to win a pawn is probably this move. So, because you attack both, and if they play knight g4, you can play g5 with a tempo. So the knight goes to e3, and you take this pawn. It is important to win the pawn back because if you don't win it now, you are down a pawn and you don't have a compensation. So, for example, if you don't win a pawn, how do you play? If you play just knight f6 after d3, I'm sure they are fine. It's like +1. So queen g5 attacking g2, this is one option. Queen e7 is the second one. So attack both d4, d6, but you lose on c6. Queen here, queen e2, so trade queens. And in this position, you can play bishop b7. Yeah, bishop b7, attacking the one on g2, so d5, take there, and then with knight e7, you finally win a pawn. This is a long line, but the position is approximately equal. So even b takes c6 is possible. But of course, the best reaction to such a move is this, and after e takes d4, queen d4, activating the queen, because c5 doesn't do much. Then queen here, for example, attacking the rook. There is no knight to attack the queen. So that's why the best that they prepared is queen e5, offering a trade. And black was completely fine with queen takes queen, knight takes f6, and taking e4. So this endgame is approximately equal. That's why white plays this move. However, queen g6 is a kind of a double attack. What would you suggest for white in this position? How to deal with double attack? Also, while you are thinking, let me explain one more thing. When you are trying to create a hidden tactic, you may also repeat the moves. Why? Because repeating the moves provides your opponent with a false sense of security. If you if your opponent thinks that, well, once you repeat the moves, he probably thinks that the position is approximately equal. Yes, my opponent wanna play for a win. That's why he won't repeat the moves 3 times. He will do it only twice. But yes, it seems that maybe he's better, but just very, very little. That's why my position is safe. And for example, you can repeat twice and then make a prophylaxis moves, which allows you to prepare this masked combination. And as always, usually it's like that. It's a counter combination. So we are allowing our opponent to initiate a tactical strike. We provide him with an illusion that this is a favorable tactical strike. And then we, well, we play like we originally wanted in order to refute that combination. For example, that happened in my game against Ariel Serene. So I thought that, yes, I play this move and he definitely wants to open my position because he thinks that there are dangerous pins. Okay, so how to play in this position? Knight c3, castle. Well, knight c3 loses this pawn, and it's not about the pawn loss, it's about pieces. I think it's too important to sacrifice the pawn on g2, so let's sacrifice the one on c2. This time, there is no need for white to win the pawn immediately, so I think they can simply continue with knight c3. Or knight a3. I play this move not to attack the queen, but to bring the knight to c4, where I think it can be, well, knight c3 is still fine. Let me do knight c3. And then, due to a better development, white has more chances. Is there a chance to trap the queen? I doubt. But it's really hard to suggest a move. So let's say knight e7, for example. How would you play for white? Oh, well, let's just play something like rook a1. So they play what? Knight g6 or knight f5. Or queen g6. Okay, queen g6. Yes, you can play so if you want to let your queen out. Then I want to play something like knight e4. I'm already threatening with this move, or maybe with this move. If let's say you play knight here, mm, does knight f6 work? Let me see. Okay, maybe it doesn't work. So let me just move the queen to a favorable position. Let's say queen c3. Yeah, I'm thinking about knight g6, but I didn't like knight g6 because they can capture it with the c pawn. Oh no, they cannot. I thought they can escape, but no, they cannot. Yes, even this works. Yeah, right. But just something simple works. So they didn't take it. Instead, they played bishop d7. Here, what would you suggest for white? So this. So maybe rook d1 to pressure d7. What do you think? Or maybe there is a better move and we can win the game instantly. Well, white did notice that d7 becomes a weakness. Well, c4, what's the purpose of c4? So you better play rook d1, I think, or just... Well, they want a castle, I think. Well, if rook d1, they will castle. Bishop g5, no. Bishop g5, I think, is a mistake. So bishop g5, then c5 with a tempo, then I want to trade and take your bishop. Let's calculate the e6 instead. What about e6? So, for example, you play e6, they castle, you take on d7. Well, king b8 doesn't look good. So, but if rook takes, it's even worse, right? What happens then? How white converts his advantage. So black is about to castle. And queen a7 after castling doesn't look good. Yeah, 95 with a fork. So let me show you. So e6, castle, take, rook takes, queen takes, and then you do a fork. And you have extra exchange in this position. So castling doesn't work. What else they can do? Can they take with the d pawn? Yeah, 95 is threatening the mate. So you see, guys, you both, I mean, you all, no, well, not all, but the vast majority of you are thinking about uh, 95. And Rito Singh says that after e6, it's f takes e6. What do you mean? But isn't there a still 95 move? Because I'm still threatening d7, and you cannot retreat to f7 with a queen to defend on d7. Black can try d5 here. Yeah, I think so. But d5, 95, and oh, then queen takes. And after rook a1, you can castle then. Okay, fine. That's why I'll capture first. Queen takes. I don't think it's a good position. So rook a1 at least. 95. Well, well, first this. So bishop e7. Knight g5. Then rook e6, so knight e6 is a problematic move. Aha, aha. So, okay, finally you found it. But you see, knight e5 looks very attractive here. If, for example, d takes, it's knight e5 and threat of checkmate and the queen. In the game, it was f takes e6. And it's still knight e5. Well, you have your bishop here, your queen. They are targeting g2 together. And but if you play c5 this time, they will checkmate first. So yeah, you have to play queen g2 first. Queen g2, sacrificing, and then playing c5, winning the queen back. So f3, c takes d4, and black is 2 pawns up. After e6, well, by playing bishop b7, black wanted to demonstrate that they are about to castle and solve problems with a weak king. Well, here white should admit it and play maybe bishop g5, maybe knight f3. Oh, bishop g5 doesn't work. So maybe play knight c3, maybe play rook d here. Maybe bishop a3. I think knight c3 is the most helpful move. So knight c3, castle, and then maybe queen a7. I still want to bring something like that. Not sure. Or maybe this move, right? Oh, well, let's do it through the center. Because, no, d6. Yeah, d6 is a problem. Why bishop g5 doesn't work? Because of c5. And then I take there. So how do you play this move? If this move, I can play h6 immediately and take advantage of the pin. So rook d1, let's say, bishop c6, defending the pawn, and I still take advantage of the pin. Okay, queen e3, but then I take there. Ah, you can take with a queen. That's the point. So you're taking here. Okay, fine. Yeah, looks like bishop g5 works. And here, for example, I can play c6, but then the bishop has to move, and it's still possible to castle. Or maybe in this position, I can just play knight e7 and still castle. I can actually play knight e7 in this position and then castle. Okay, anyway, so with bishop b7, black wanted to show that they are going to castle. And here, white understands that he is dominating. He is much, much better here. And that's why he wants to convert his advantage to a more significant advantage, to maybe material advantage, maybe checkmate, maybe, well, I think he wants to have a huge material advantage to decide the game here right away. That's why he can be provoked to play e6, which is not a good move. Actually, if you turn the engine on, it says black is a little better because of a bishop pair. So you see, black provided white with a false sense that white is dominating in this position, but actually not. These two pieces do a lot of problems to the king, for example. And well, because white thought that he is winning, then he found, okay, I can play this. So queen takes, it's this. If pawn takes, then it's 95. If d takes, it's also 95. But he completely missed the opportunities of black pieces, that there is queen g2 and discovered attack. Fine. Let's continue. So you may use this weapon too. So for example, you can, like you see your opponent is about to play something. Okay, uh, let's play such a move which allows him to continue with his plan, but at the very end contains a tactical strike which refutes his idea or his combination. Okay, let's take a look at a different example in the, it's also an opening trap. So Ruy Lopez again, d6, okay, take, and then d4, fighting for the center, f6. It's a very Well, it's a move that is usually weak because it weakens the complex of light squares, but this time white doesn't have a light squared bishop. So white plays knight c3. Here, many of you may ask me if there is knight e5 move. No. So in this position, knight e5 doesn't work. There is g6. If in this position, it's too late to play knight e5 because the queens are exchanged first and you simply sacrifice the knight with no attack. Knight e5 works only here, when you can quickly develop your queen, and for g6 you have queen e5, which is a fork. So, and for king e7 you have a strong attack which allows you to bring pieces. So this, for example, leads to a checkmate with h takes g5 and queen f7 after that. Okay, fine. So let's go back to our example. d4 was played f6, knight c3, rook b8, putting pressure. So with this move, black wanted to tie the white's bishop on c1 to the b2 pawn. They continued with queen d3. Well, that move wasn't required, actually. Knight e7, h4. Why h4? So the knight goes to g6, h5 is a good idea to chase him away. That's why black reacted with h5 himself. There is no light square bishop, so that's why he may weaken light squares exactly like that. Now, what do you think? How to play in this position? Castling seems logical, right? Brian wants to open the center. Okay, d takes e5, but then it's f takes e5. You still open the center just partially. If you play d5, maybe they will react with c5, or maybe they take. I think actually taking is also playable. Can we expand on the king side? Well, g4. No, we cannot play g4. How else to expand on the king side? I think you have to play in the center, but at the same time, there are not so many moves for black that they can play. Even bishop e6 is not available. It's a pawn sacrifice. In future, well, I don't think you have the control over the g4. That's why I think that doing this is very suspicious. Well, you can do so with f3, g4, but it still seems to be not enough. You have to play knight there, then, but then h4 is weak. b3, bishop b2. Okay, so John is thinking in the right direction, developing pieces and trying to centralize them. What do you think if you can create a hidden tactic in this position for your opponent? So I'm checking your comments. Okay, b3, bishop b2. Is there anything better than this? Because it looks like a slow strategy. You cannot play rook h3. It's a sacrifice. Otherwise, yes. For example, if he was castle, there was no bishop, then rook h3, rook g3 is a possibility. Okay. Okay, so thanks, John. Yes, it seems that yeah. Okay, so Brian, well, no, yes, you can take on a6, but first it's my move. So, I mean, it's black's turn to play. Even if they sacrifice you this pawn, then what about these pawns? Also, they can play this move, and now you have to defend it. By moving the knight, of course, you can do it. So this time you can take, let's say, they can already take on h3. Or they can continue, well, if they continue with this, then knight g5 is good for you. So let's say they take here. Yeah, this not so good, but the bishop is now open and h3 is still vulnerable. How do you have to play? Knight g1 or knight d2? Maybe knight d2. So knight g6. Now you have to defend this. You can do that, but then it's knight f4. So, and looks like black pieces are better prepared. So well, even if you take it, it's still not enough. So please don't sacrifice pieces like that. It's unsound sacrifice. So it was bishop e3 played. But doesn't this move blunder a pawn on b2? Because I thought that rook b8 originally was played in order to tie the bishop down. But it's a free pawn, isn't it? So John, for example, here suggested to castle, for example, rook b2 and castle. Well, the pawn is not the most important pawn, but just sacrificing the pawn with no compensation makes no sense. Castling here is logical. How does it work? Yeah, so the rook moves. Where? So to b8, I think. Maybe to b4. Then you can take on e5. You can take on e5, and if they take with the f, you take with your knight because there is a pin. So now it's quite obvious that there is a pin, and black would likely to continue with knight g6. Then maybe you take there, or no, 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 no. How to play? If you take there, they take with a queen. Yeah, you take there, queen takes, and then you play bishop g5. Queen goes to f7, for example. Maybe there is knight e5, but let's say queen goes to f7. And here you have a domination. Knight a4, I don't think knight a4 works. Okay, but maybe castling is not the best way. I'm sure that castling compensates your pawn sacrifice. Knight a4 before a queen move. Okay, so which position are you talking about? So castle, rook b8, this. So in this position, knight a4. Can you please specify what for? So they take, you take, they take, and what it allows you to do. Ah, knight c5. Okay, what for? To threaten the pawn? I think he is happy to sacrifice it. So how does he play? Bishop e7. Now the knight is hanging, so you have to take. Bishop takes. Well, this is also what we should analyze. But let's say bishop takes this, and then castle. Check. King h8, queen c6, and I don't know who is better in this position. Maybe white is still fine. Okay, so yeah, let me do this. And then I take on a2. Because if you play this move, I can continue with d5, attacking it. And then d4. So capturing is attractive, but doesn't really work because your checks are over and there is still no rook h3. There is this, but I think it's a blunder. So check here, check here, check here, check here, and then what? Well, at least black is a piece up. For example, queen e7 with queen e3 is a threat. What else? No, I think it's enough, but maybe just queen f6 to trade pieces. Okay, fine. So no, knight a4 makes no sense. So the rook is dangerous to the king. Okay, so then found an improvement. Thanks. So you don't really need to castle right away. You may keep this tactic hidden. You may capture on e5. And if now this move is played, okay, so Brian, I think you are mistaken. If it took 10 minutes for me to refute it, I can say that it makes no sense. No, I can't say so. Uh, so even if it took 10 minutes for me, in a standard game, your opponent would refute it. So that's why making such a move that, and I could refute it without engine. The engine would refute it in seconds. But even if I could, then it means that your opponent can do so. So please do not make such sacrifices which can be refuted. You can only do it in a blitz game when you provoke your opponent to spend more time. So for example, you have 1 minute, he has 30 seconds. And then you do this, which looks suspicious, but still creates problems and still forces him to calculate and spends time because at that situation, every his move is responsible. Then yes, you can play so. But if we assume it's standard or rapid game, no, you cannot play yourself. You cannot play this move, sorry. You cannot play this move because there are tons of better moves in this position, which provides you with a huge advantage in case if you are in case if you calculate it, if you spend your time, if you have it, of course. If it's a blitz or bullet game, yes, you can do what you want. But if you have time, play the move, which provides you with advantage, even in case if your opponent finds the best move and plays according to the engine. Okay, so for me, the words that it doesn't make sense and the idea doesn't work are very similar. So maybe it's because I'm not a native speaker, but let's go back. Let's talk about knight a4 once again. So castle, rook b8, d takes e5, and this is where you play knight g6, and this is where you play knight a4. So what for? To bring the knight to c5, you spend 2 tempi to capture that useless pawn on a6, giving up your pawn on e5. Why you think it's a good idea? Because knight c5 only allows you to take the pawn, nothing more. So I take, you f takes, so knight c5. Okay, let it be like that. You don't create any threats with this. That's why such a maneuver with the knight makes no sense for me. So the knight on c5 is better than the knight on c3. Yes, a little, but it doesn't cost 2 tempi. Instead, you'd better try to bring your pieces to g5. The knight on g5 is definitely better. But at the same time, I don't want to give up a pawn. So doing this provokes this, which ruins his pawn structure, which is good. And then I can occupy, for example, f5. f5 is definitely better because I still assume his king to castle, to the king side. or queen there, which allows me to play bishop g5. And then I can, well, I don't want to give up this pawn, so I don't move this knight for a while. So here, probably I just try to centralize and play e5, because this time they don't have this move. I'll take it and checkmate on d8. So John suggests to have a concrete plan behind the move to deliver results. Well, it's a good point. Usually, in most cases, it's absolutely right, but sometimes the positions are calm and you have to play positionally. And this is where you very often can make your decision based on some general factors. Like you don't know what to play. It's the end game. You will just okay. So play. You play according to the positional principles. There is open file. You don't know any move that makes your position better. So put the rook to the open file, and nobody will blame you for that move. So in most cases, that's absolutely right. There should be concrete plans behind the move. Um, uh, but sometimes when it's a composition, then you may base your decision on certain factors and just overall judgment about the position. Okay, so can we play better? So with castle queen side, we reveal our secret. We reveal that there is a pin and they cannot take on e5. This is what they understand. But if we take first, it's not so transparent for them that there is a pin, because right now there is no pin. And that's why in the game, black took with the pawn. There is no pin. Then we can take and finally deliver a tactical strike. I'm sure many of you saw this tactical idea in textbooks where the king castle to the queen side was attacking the rook, but the rook was attacking the king. It happened in different positions. So here it works. This is how the game ended. Well, after d takes e5, well, they could take with the f pawn. This time you take, pawn takes, and after this trade, you win exchange, which is still winning. That's why here they'd better recognize this tactical strike, which is not obvious, because who can imagine that castle queenside can be a double attack? This almost never happens. So here they could just play knight g6, and after that their position is slightly worse. So it's similar to what we analyzed. We can castle here, then we can take on f6 and play bishop to g5. Then white is a little better. Well, +1, I would say, because the number of pawns is still equal. White has some positional advantage due to their better pieces placement. The pieces are in the center. Okay, so fine. So what I wanted you to remember, well, you can castle in this position and then do this, but you'd better instead keep the combination hidden until the very end, if it's of course possible, if it's not refuted at the later stage. So double check it, because it's very easy to blunder that you can trade the queens and then the castle with a cross check. Oh, with a check. Okay, fine. Let's continue. This game example, also a very nice example. Well, I noticed that nowadays c3 becomes more often in this exact position or in this exact position. So like they think that you automatically play bishop c5 and then they play this move. And for knight f6, they prepared also something like that. So take e5, I think. I actually think that black is fine after this. C takes d4, d6. Well, maybe white has some concrete ideas in mind here. Anyway, so it becomes popular, and in that game it was also played. I think the game was played in 60s in Soviet Union. Knight c6, d4 obviously. Knight f6 attacking the pawn. What do you think is the best continuation for white? It's too early to talk about tactical strikes. Just try to find what can strategically improve the white's position. So there are two ideas, bishop g5 and d5. So then can you specify why you want to play bishop g5? Yeah, so both moves deserve attention. What I think that bishop g5 is too premature. Why? Because after h6, it seems that you have to trade to not lose a pawn on a4. And it's too early to give up a bishop for the knight. I would say d5 because this comes with a tempo. Well, this comes with a tempo, so that's why most likely the knight would go there because here it's trapped. B8 is playable, but people usually who plays 96, they assume that d5 can be played and they don't want to return back. Well, only if they think that d5 is favorable for them. In this position, it's not. So knight e7, let's defend. So bishop d3 is logical, but it seems that f3 is also fine. And then you can play c4, bishop a3, knight c3. I would even start with bishop a3 first, then c4, then knight c3, and well, transpose to kind of a samish variation. Because these moves were played with a tempo, it seems to be okay for white to play with pawns so much. The position is closed. There is no way for black to punish white because of that. So it should be okay. So d5 works. In the game, it was bishop g5, played h6, bishop h4, and g5. Bishop g3. So I think taking on e4 is the best move, actually. This means that knight g3, then knight e5 works. So they can take on e5 with the bishop. So knight takes, pawn takes, then I think d5 makes a lot of sense. Well, maybe it's too early for d5. Bishop g7 is also good. Queen e7. Yeah, I like queen e7. So, because if knight f3, it's g4, and then I take there. Should be fine. Black decided to play e takes d4, inviting white to play e5. Because if c takes d4, it's this. So they invited e5. It was already a mistake. But how black can now take advantage of this mistake? Oh, you need to think and calculate a little. So seems that e5 is fine. Once the knight goes there, it's c takes d4. Ah, there can be a check on b4 then. Interesting. So king moves. Yeah, I think knight e4 is good. Queen e7, queen e2, knight g4. Well, knight g4, knight f3. Oh, wait. No, this is protected. So just, c takes d4 is not playable. Okay, knight f3 still. Or maybe h3. No, queen e7, queen e2, knight here, h3. You can try d3. Oh, you don't need to try d3. You can still try d3 and capture there. Okay, good point. So knight f3, I have to defend it. Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, thanks, John. We missed that the knight is just hanging. Also, for this move, I think they can just take. Maybe you can continue with this, but then queen d2. No, queen d2, does it work? So what do you think? For example, takes, fork, king moves. Because of this check, probably the queen should be traded, and maybe then the knight is trapped. If so, then white has two minor pieces for a rook. So probably white is better here. But yeah, I think knight e4 was the best move. In case of c takes d4, there is a check which forces the king to move because blocking is not a possibility at all. And once the king moves, it's perfect. So what move to play? d5, I think. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I like it. Oh, there is b6 also. Okay, I think no rush. Let me try this. If f3, I can always take. I actually want to open the position, so maybe d6 is better. And if this, I take first, and then I take with my queen there. So knight e4 is the best. However, black didn't play this move. He played another tricky move. They took on c3. And this move creates a combination, a hidden combination. It's not obvious. What do you think white should continue with? Just take on c3? Yeah, if they take on c3, the knight moves and white is a pawn down, but they have the center, they have some space advantage, so it's not bad. So bishop here, castle, d6 at some point. So I don't know. Well, seems equal. White, well, the engine thinks white is a little better. I just checked it. So the engine suggests to continue with h4. I don't think that h4 is a threat. H4, maybe bishop here to protect the rook. Fine. So maybe white has a better position due to their pieces development. Okay, so Zamfir suggests a very interesting line. So he suggests to capture on f6, c takes b2, queen e2, bishop e7, and bishop c7. But wait a sec, what's the purpose of bishop c7? It's not even checkmate. If the queen takes, this is not checkmate. There is a knight. Moreover, I'm not forced to take because I can take your rook. And this makes no sense. We trade queens and you lose a lot of material. But it's absolutely right. So knight c3 was the best move. But for white, it seems that this is winning because they have this check. What can you say about this check? It's not checkmate, exactly. So it's not checkmate, it's just a check. We can block with a bishop, we can block with a queen. Two options. Block with a knight is the third option. So blocking with the bishop, well, if they take, then queen takes, and this queen is pinned, which means that there is no chance to stop the pawn. So let me show you. So this, and queen b2 cannot be played, and this move is unstoppable. Well, bishop f5, but queen takes e5. That's why they'd better take first. Bishop takes and knight c3, and this is approximately equal position. White is a piece up, but black has a compensation of 3 pawns. Doing 97 makes no sense at all because simply queen b2 and this pawn is not liquidated. So, but there is a huge difference when you block with the queen. Now the queen is pinned, and b takes a1 can be the next move. But let's calculate this. Then let's say we promote. They take there. King takes. White is down exchange, or no, white has 2 minor pieces for a rook. As for the number of pawns, I think it's 3 pawns, 3 extra pawns, and the rook versus 2 minor pieces. So black should be fine. Yeah, almost. But instead, well, in this line, black should be fine, but it's not so winning. For example, queen c2, queen d3, queen e4. So still not easy to find the best move. Queen d1. Okay, well, the queen is here. So queen d3. No, queen e4. Okay, queen c2. This move, then this, at least. Okay, fine. So, but if instead in this position you play bishop g7, there is no way to save the rook. So now, in order to not lose a rook and to not let promote, they have to sacrifice the queen. So knight e3, you can still take the rook, but maybe it's too risky. So it's better to take the knight and then take there. So bishop c7. Bishop c7 maybe is a blunder because of this. Okay, let's say doesn't matter. Let's just analyze. You are 2 pawns up here. Black is 2 pawns up. If you take the rook, which is also possible, then you have to defend c7. So this, and this fails because of knight d5. So that's why it's better just to take the knight and play this position with 2 extra pawns and threatening to capture this one next. Because c7 is a poison pawn. Okay, what did white miss in this combination? They thought that blocking with the queen is completely losing because, well, usually when chess player loses a queen, the game is over. But this time it works perfectly well because we have another pawn that can be promoted, a pawn that can be promoted to a queen by capturing the rook. So it's not only a promotion, it's winning a rook move that compensates that compensates sacrifice on f6 that we did one step earlier. So let's look again. So this is definitely the best move, knight e4. Probably black saw that and decided to play this to provoke e5. And then to provoke e takes f6. Well, knight of c3 would be definitely better option, but white, well, is greedy. Of course, if it's possible to win more material, white will win it. And white saw that after the queen, it's either knight e7 or bishop e7, and in both cases, he's fine. He missed that it's possible to give up the queen and get the b2 pawn promoted to a new queen, or exchange the white queen for that pawn. Okay, fine. So if I didn't understand this question, if they take queen, we go bishop f7. Which bishop f7? Bishop c7, you mean? But I don't understand. What for bishop c7? The rook is hanging. Maybe you're talking about different position. Fine. Okay, so I have one more thing to show you. However, before we continue with the last game example, I want to remind you that if you would like to support my workshops, there is a link here. There is a link that you can use. I can copy it in the chat. I can paste it in the chat. This. So it works easily. You can just click on this button and new pop-up window appears where you can enter the amount you want to donate. It can be any amount. And then you click PayPal button. It redirects you to log into your PayPal account. So you click continue and then you are sending money to my PayPal account. I would appreciate it. It helps me a lot to prepare material as well as to pay for my pay for my assistance. Now, for example, well, you probably know I'm working with a FIDE master from Russia. It's my old friend, and he is helping me. He's sending me the games, and I'm choosing among them. So he saves a lot of time for me. Okay, the game I wanted to show you is also included to one of my courses. Well, devoted to visualization. So it's Power Up Visualization on Chessable. Maybe you have the access to it. Well, this I decided to show this game because this masked or hidden tactics is very is connected. It's referred to the inability to notice enemy capabilities. So it's either inability of noticing it or just not enough attention to the enemy capabilities, like it was here. So white is slightly better in this position. They have the center. So the queen is the object of the attack. The queen moves to h5. This is their plan. Well, queen moving to a5 is slightly better, but the queen is not really doing much there because they can castle. Oh. Okay, so if you are interested in the course, I can send you the link. Okay, a little later. Let's continue. So white is a little better, but black think that maybe they are worse, but just a little. So they play queen h5. This is already a mistake. And they play this move because they are not paying enough attention. So the queen here on the edge of the board can be trapped, or if not trapped, at least it's possible to take advantage of that. What would you play for white? So this is the course I'm talking about. I think it's my most underestimated course. 95 with two ideas. What are these ideas? Because 95, you cannot play g4 to trap him. You can try bishop f3, but queen h3, so he escapes. Knight b5. Well, okay, 95. Let's talk about it. I don't think this is a threat because it's attacked several times. The bishop, if bishop gets distracted, then b7 is hanging. So this makes sense, but there is still a knight on f6. Knight b5, okay, but you cannot play knight b5 here because it's just hanging. So that's why you play knight e5. So how do they play in this position? So one option is c6. The other option is knight d7. What about knight d7? Well, I think black is threatening to take. G4 this time means knight g4. Oh, wait. So take, and just simply this. So knight g7 isn't a good move. Okay, so knight e5, c6 gen. Just then knight d7 on the next move. And the problem is that bishop f3 doesn't allow to trap the queen. So because the queen gets h3 square, that's why playing h3 makes a lot of sense. And this is what was played in the game. So again, black thinks that they are completely fine. So nothing is going on. They can always escape to a5. And actually, this is what they should do at the moment. But you should understand that spending too many tempi with the queen allows white to develop their pieces quickly, and because of better development, get some advantage. So here, black shows absolute inattention to the opponent's capabilities. The queen is likely to be trapped. So they play knight c6, developing pieces, but then the queen is trapped with knight g5. And since this moment, there is nothing they can do. So once again, let's take a look at these moves. So knight c3, gaining the temper. The queen moves to the edge. So, okay. Here we play h3. Well, one may recognize that h3 is played to g4 to be able to then continue with g4 or this and that. But a normal chess player may just consider that, an ordinary chess player may just consider that this is mainly against bishop h3, because exchanging these bishops is favorable for black. So queen h5, one of the ideas is to play bishop h3. So black may consider that h3 is played in order to stop it. So he may not see knight g5 move. So that's why this is the well masked idea. And after this move, well, what else they can do? Develop pieces. It's always great, but not when your queen is in a danger. And now the queen has only one escape square. Even there, the queen falls under a discovered attack. So it's hard to suggest any good move because this also fails. Maybe there is a better way to play. Well, knight e6 is good enough. Knight f7 is good. So they played rook d8 instead. And the concept was that they can capture on d4 with a temper. But how does it work? So bishop f3, the queen moves, and there is a discovered attack. Maybe they take there first, which happened. And maybe they thought that they are only losing the exchange. And maybe this is what black wanted. But after queen b3, there is another weakness. So not only the queen, but the f7. And this time queen h6 doesn't work so well. So this, and knight e6. Oh, knight e6, bishop e6. So what would you suggest? Okay, so I know the suggestion. I know what I would play. What do you think you can play here? Knight G e4. Ah, so you mean the queen is totally trapped? Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Anything else instead of knight g4? I think, well, g5 here. Bishop g5, queen g6. Seems black saved their game. Well, they are still worse, but it's at least something. Mm-hmm. No, maybe not knight g4. Maybe you have anything else? Why not bishop g5 first? In which position? Ah, in the previous example, we will go back to it one more time later. Mhm. Queen f6. Yeah, it seems queen f6 works. So queen f6 wins a piece. So pawn takes this, this, and this, and it's protected twice by the bishop. So it also works in case of bishop takes knight f7, king g7, and knight can still escape to g4. Yes, I would play just this move, threatening with a fork. And I don't know what black can do to defend. I didn't find it. So rook b4? No, it's even checkmate. So this, and this, then, well, what Brian likes, smothered mate. Okay, so knight d8. Good point. You can play knight d8, but I think I can still play this and get a queen for two pieces. So it's still winning. Okay, well, I think it's better than queen f6 because with queen f6 you win a piece, and with queen b3 you win a queen for two pieces, and you can still continue the attack on the enemy king. Fine. So yeah, this is how it works, and this is how the game ended. After queen b3, he resigned. But let's talk about bishop g5 move. So h3, knight c6, and bishop g5. Now you threaten with g4. e5. Ah, you mean first move e5. Okay. How can they save the game here? So g4 is problematic. Okay, so h6. I didn't find anything better. g4. Knight g4. H takes g4. Queen g4 is a double attack. But bishop h3 with a tempo. Queen h5, a pin. And my next move is this. So it's a bit unclear. So probably here you have to take one there. And after this move, rook h, rook h2. And then queen d2, threatening mate. But it's not an easy win. So bishop d4. Why do I play so? Because I assume playing queen g1 in this position. Or queen g1 is mate. So bishop takes h6. And king f8. So queen h6 this time makes no sense. It's extra exchange. But, well, it's playable for black. They are down exchange, but they have 2 pawns to compensate it. Should be fine. Yeah, castle queenside. Then bishop e6 and bishop f5. Yeah, bishop g5 is interesting, but doesn't work as well as knight g5 works. Because knight g5 bases the idea not on g4, but bishop f3, which is much better. Because for g4, they can sacrifice a piece. For bishop f3, they sacrifice more. Maybe even the queen is trapped. No, there was no mate because the king could escape to g7. So bishop f3 is the idea, but g4 also worked. Anyway, what I want you to remember, well, very often your opponent is not paying attention to what you are really doing. And very often, well, most chess players, including me, tend to overestimate their positions. So here, with the queen on h5, your opponent may think, okay, so I'm still fine. Maybe white is a little better, but just a little. But lack of development and the compromised position of the queen should already indicate black that not everything is so safe in this position, and instead of developing pieces, they should pay attention to every move that white plays. But chess players, if they're not told about it, usually do not pay much attention. So especially if it's a move like h3, which by the first glance is a defensive move and just stop bishop h3, or maybe threatens with g4 to grab space, but still allows the queen to escape. And that's why this is where your opponent may become fearless and can keep developing his pieces and miss a very important tactical strike. Anyway, so try to hide your tactical ideas. This is my personal advice. If you hide them, they are more likely to work. Well, because if you play something transparent, your opponent definitely finds of how to defend against it. Okay, so once again, in order to prepare such combinations, you have to be a little sneaky. You have to think in advance and put yourself in the enemy shoes. So, for example, you should ask yourself, well, okay, I can visualize this idea. Can my opponent visualize it? Well, maybe yes, but if I keep it masked, if I, for example, play some moves that can camouflage my idea, maybe he misses it. Okay, fine. So let's finish for today. Hope to see everyone next Sunday. I will announce the topic of the next webinar soon. What else? And on Friday, there is a group class. And soon I will announce a new cycle of group classes, which is likely to start in the first Friday of June. Okay. Any questions? Well, if not, let's finish for today and see you next Sunday.